Okay, so today we're going to be showing you how to make yarn wefts for making doll wigs. You are going to need a few things to do this. Obviously your yarn of the colour you're choosing. We're actually going to be using two different sort of very blonde colours to try and get a bit of a two-tone effect. You'll want this to be 100% acrylic, otherwise it will melt or cause problems when you're trying to straighten it later. You will also want a pair of scissors, and we use wire coat hangers to do this on, as it enables us to make quite a lot of wefts in one go. You are also going to need a pet brush. We have a couple of examples here. This one does work quite well, but this is much better for sort of brushing out the yarn wefts. This is better for sort of handling it afterwards and getting a smooth finish. You are also going to want hair straighteners. These will want low temperature ones. You won't want anything that goes massively high, because that's just going to cause, again, problems when you're straightening it later. We do have a heat mat, but again, that's just for convenience. That's not a necessity, just a recommendation. The other thing I use is a wooden block, which is simply for making sure I get even length of wefts across the board, and I can get it nice and consistent, and I can make lots at once. What we're using here is actually a soap block, like you just put on your sink with a block of soap on it, but it's a good size. This one is about 4 inches or 10 centimeters long, and we will be going around it that way, because we are aiming for between sort of 13 to probably 25 centimeter long strips of yarn to make your wig with. Anything which is about 5.5 inches, yes. So we will start by cutting our yarn to get strips. I've actually pre-cut one of our colours, so this is what we're aiming for. The way I get this is I simply just wrap it repeatedly around the block. I usually do this in sort of going around it about 5 times at a time, because that way I can keep sort of track of what I'm doing. It doesn't matter so much if you're doing it all one colour, but obviously if you're trying to spread it out over several different colours and you want multiple colours in your wig, you are going to want to try and get sort of even proportions of those. So it's a bit more important if you're doing sort of two-tone wigs. But as you can see, it's quite quick to do. You can just, as long as you don't get tangled, wrap it round, and then just get a pair of scissors and it can be a bit tricky to get it started, but just cut along the top. Don't worry too much about keeping hold of them, though the more you can keep hold of them, the better, because we are going to cut these in half again. Now, if you want to make a long wig, I would recommend you just go for this length and you don't cut it in half again. I am, however, trying to make a short wig, so I will want shorter strands than this, which means that I'm just going to line them all up and then cut them all straight in half. It's very simple. You end up with short lengths. Now, once you have your lengths, if you've got 2 or 3 colours, 3 is a good one to go for, because we're going to do them in groups of 3. I'm going to do 2, so I'm going to be doing 2 of one colour and 1 of another, and then I think I might have missed that one. Doing 2 of one colour and then 1 of the other, and then alternating back again. So this one I'm making 2 from this pile and 1 from this pile, and lining those up so they're about even. I then wrap that around my finger like so, and I'm going to put that straight onto the coat hanger, even either side, so your lengths are about the same. Make a gap here and then just pull it straight through, and that will be nice and secure on your coat hanger. Now I'm not going to demonstrate with all of these because it does take a little while to actually sit and do that. I like to do it in front of the TV or something, pass the time, because it's not very difficult, it's just time consuming. Here though is one that I did earlier, and once you've got this, you are ready to brush them out. Now what we do with that is we take our brush here, and you're going to want a solid surface to work against, because anything that's got too much give in it, you're going to end up risk tearing fabrics or anything like that. So wooden surfaces or hard plastic surfaces are the best. And avoiding the knots, you don't want to pull these knots right at the top here, because if you pull on these, it will start to unravel and you'll get in all sorts of a mess. Trust me, I've done it. It's not good. But then you're just going to want to very firmly brush through, and straight away you can see that it starts to sort of fluff out, and you will get fluff coming off it on the brush. Just pull that off. You're going to get quite a reasonable amount, because like this is what we got from doing the previous one. So don't worry, lots coming off, that's totally normal. You're going to want to keep brushing it, and you might want to turn it over as you do, just to make sure that you're not missing any of the threads. Again, it's a little bit time consuming, but not too bad. I'm not going to demonstrate this full one right now, because again, we've got one that we've done earlier, because we are going to use about 3 coat hangers worth to make this wig. So and we've got probably, I can't remember exactly how many on here, but I think we've got about 45 on each coat hanger at the moment. We sometimes go up to 60 on a coat hanger. Anything more than that, you're going to have trouble managing it. So I wouldn't go higher than that. And I do mean sort of 45 sets of 3 strands. So 45 knots worth effectively. But once you've brushed it all out, this is the effect you're looking for. So very fluffy, very poofy. I know it doesn't look much like hair right now, but we will get there. So what you can do then, once you've got this, and I mean, you can either do it sort of 1 coat hanger at a time, or do all your coat hangers and then do each stage of the process. But you will want your hair straighteners, which I have preheated up to their lowest setting on here, and just pulling 1, maybe 2, but I would start with 1 of these knots. And just push these aside, because we don't want too many of them in the way. We're just going to take 1 of these, and now slowly, because if you go fast, you'll end up sort of with a wrinkling effect, which I will show you actually. So if you just do this, you end up with this sort of very sort of wrinkled, I don't know how well you can see this on camera, but it ends up not very smooth, kind of wrinkly, not really what we're looking for. So what we want to do is sort of very slowly, and it helps, I find, to blow on it while you're doing it so that it cools it down. So we're going to go nice and slowly. And that is starting to give us the very smooth effect that we're looking for. You can go over this a few times to get the effect you want. In between, you might want to run a brush through it. We tend to use this one instead because it's a bit less harsh than the other one. It will just pull out any bits we missed, sort of fluff it up a little bit, make sure there aren't any tangles appearing or anything like that. So we're going to do that again. As you can see, it's a bit of a time-consuming process, this bit. This is the bit that I find most frustrating, but it's worth taking your time to do it properly, because if you don't, you're going to end up with a fluffy wig at the end, and that is just, you're not going to be satisfied with the final product, and it's just worth taking your time a little bit. So I'm not going to straighten all these now because, again, like I said, it's time consuming. But what we do with our weft, once we've got it, you're going to want to hold this nice and secure, making sure you've got all of the parts of it, because we are going to cut it off here. You take your scissors again, and we're going to cut right basically across the knot, because we don't want to lose any of the length. So we're going really close to the edge. And it doesn't matter if parts of the knot come with it, because they will just pull out. So I've got a little bit there, so just pull those bits out. And this is what we've got here. So we now use, it's basically an old piece of plastic packaging. You're going to want something that you can peel glue off very easily. It might be worth checking this before you glue any wefts to it, because we have had coloured plastic peel off the colours before. So you want unpainted, undecorated plastic, cleaned obviously, because you don't want any bits and pieces getting caught in your wefts. And then you want PVA glue, or Elmers, depending on where you are in the world. We've got a bottle here. It's mostly empty now because we've been doing this a lot. And you're going to want a paintbrush that you don't care too much about. Not a too thick a brush, because you don't want to be dumping loads of glue onto it, but you want to be able to get a reasonable amount. Now what we're going to do is we're going to dab a little bit of glue onto our plastic strip where we want it, because you want to be able to get glue underneath the weft as well, because you want it right the way through the threads. And then once we've got some glue on there, we basically place this down into there, and we get a bit more glue. It's a bit of a juggle sometimes, but figure out what works for you. And then we're just going to work the glue straight into it, and we want to spread it out very slightly, because you don't want it too thick. Otherwise, when you put it on your doll's head, it's going to just come out sort of clumpy and thick. And show you here, we're just making sure it's nice and evenly through, nice and evenly spread out. And don't worry if you've got different bits that are different lengths. These will sort of be trimmed either in your final cut, or they will disappear as you put multiple layers into your wig that you're making. So what you do then is you wait for this to dry. Now again, it's best to wait a significant period of time to do that, because you do not want to be peeling these off too soon, because they will fall apart, or you'll get sticky, or you'll get stuff stuck to them, and it's just not worth rushing. I am going to show you an example of what they should look like after they have been peeled off. This is a one we're making for a different wig. It's just going to be bright blue, but you're going to end up with this sort of quite a clumpy glue bit on the end here. It's quite thin. It's thin, but you've got lots of excess up the top here. And what we're going to do is you're going to want to take off anything on the edges. So these bits of glue we've got at the side here, we don't want those on there really. So just very carefully trim the edges off. And then looking at where your line of your glue is, which is ours is around here, we're going to want to leave a very small amount. It's a few mil, less than half a centimetre, less than 1/4 of an inch, very, very small amount. And you're going to trim it, and we should end up with a little strip like that, which can then be glued straight onto a wig cap and to make a wig. And you can mix multiple different wefts. I've done wigs where I had some that had multicolours in, and then some with the whole colour. So I've got a purple wig that had bits of grey in it, and then I mixed solid purple ones in. Or you can just do ones with 3 different colours. This is ones I've done for another wig that I made. Or you can even just go for whole colours. Like this one is just a solid one colour one. And then so depending how blocky you want it to be, how integrated you want the colours to be, just experiment really. If in doubt, make up a few different combinations as sort of test wefts to see what works for you, for what you're looking for. We did quite a few tests before we decided to go for this combination of blonde. But anyway, if you've got any questions, feel free to leave messages in the comments, and I will put together a video when I actually make this wig once I have all the wefts put together.